So this has been a pretty interesting week at the Pentagon, which is saying something. Looks like 4 senior officials have been moved out of their positions, a couple of them permanently fired just in the last couple days, and 2 20-something kids are being moved into roles for the Office of the Secretary of Defense, which is not the most normal thing, but we'll get into that in a second. Starting with this article in Politico yesterday, they broke this story saying that Joe Casper, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth's chief of staff, will leave his role in the coming days for a new position at the agency. It's according to a senior administration official amid a week of turmoil at the Pentagon. So starting out there, Casper, I guess, is going to stay at DOD, but I mean, it's going to be a downgrade. You have to imagine going from chief of staff to SecDef to anything else. But there's more here with Casper. They say senior advisor Dan Caldwell, Hegseth Deputy Chief of Staff Darren Selnick, and Colin Carroll, the Chief of Staff to Deputy Defense Secretary Stephen Feinberg, were all placed on leave this week amid an ongoing leak probe. All 3 were terminated on Friday, according to 3 people familiar with the matter who, like others, are granted anonymity to discuss the sensitive issue. So this leak probe was initiated by Casper. And it came out right about the time that Musk was going to the Defense Department. This was before the Signalgate stuff. That seems to be totally separate from anything that's happening here, from what I can tell. But they had talked about, hey, we're going to roll out some polygraphs. Like, leaks are not acceptable. We're going to crack down. We're going to find out where these are coming from, and we're going to remove those people from their posts, which seems like that's what's happening here. Now, they say the changes will leave Hegseth without a chief of staff, a deputy chief of staff, or a senior advisor in his front office. That's a lot to go without. These are very significant deputies to have around you day to day when you're running something as large as the Pentagon, right? They say Caldwell, Carroll, Selnick, and Casper all declined to comment. 2 of the people said Carroll and Selnick planned to sue for wrongful termination, and the Pentagon did not respond to a request of comment. This is one of the challenges here. We've had 1 Pentagon press conference since this team has come in. They've got a pretty decent-sized comms team from everything I can tell. They're putting out a couple times a week kind of PR-type videos. We've got the DoD sit reps coming out.
Hello, America, and welcome to the DoD's weekly sit rep. Folks, it was a jam-packed week at the Department of Defense. Secretary Hegseth hosted El Salvador's Minister of Defense and the French Minister of Defense at the Pentagon for bilateral discussion. We're working with our partners and allies to make peace through strength a reality all around the world.
And then we've got not really recruiting commercials, but kind of hype films coming out as well.
One of the dumbest phrases in military history: our diversity is our strength. Our shared purpose is our strength. We are one DoD community committed to the same mission. We are American warriors.
But in terms of standing in front of reporters and answering questions, even in the Pentagon, it's just not happening at all. Occasionally we'll get Secretary Hegseth kind of walking to or from a plane, but that's really died off recently as well. Following the whole Signalgate thing, there's just hardly any interaction with the press from what I can tell. They say Joe Casper had requested an investigation into Pentagon leaks in March, which included military operational plans for the Panama Canal, a second carrier headed to the Red Sea, Musk's visit to the DoD, and a pause in the collection of intelligence for Ukraine. Something notable here is, I think anytime that a new team comes into a government, or anywhere for that matter, there's always the view that the old guard is going to get purged, right? You want to get people out that maybe don't align with the new vision, if you will. And you look for any reason to move them on out. Every one of the people that have so far been pushed out, these 4 that we're talking about today, were all appointees under this administration. So these are people that Hegseth and his team brought in. They chose these people for their positions. That doesn't mean that they're better or worse quality, anything like that. It's simply that this would not be a case of like trying to move out old Biden appointees, is kind of what I'm trying to hammer home there. In fact, at least 2 of these, I believe it was Caldwell and then Selnick, actually worked at the nonprofit that Hegseth ran prior to coming over to the DoD, and I think prior to his time at Fox News. So there's some historic ties there. Now, looking at a couple of reactions here, we've got Barbara Starr, who's covered the Pentagon for a while. She posted, quote, "I've covered the Pentagon for many years. Genuinely have never seen this many aides to the SecDef dismissed in such a short period of time. Silence at the top won't make it better." That's what I'm talking about with, we don't have, right now, all of the information is coming from what I would argue are some, rather adversarial outlets towards the Pentagon, but we're not getting anything from the Pentagon. So next up, I've got a clip here of Paul Rickenoff talking on MSNBC, which you understand that MSNBC is going to come at this with a Trump is doing bad, Hegseth bad, they don't know what they're doing type of approach, but we're not getting anything on the other side. So I'm not finding any coverage on what I would consider more Trump-friendly outlets. And again, the Pentagon themselves completely silent at this point. But with that, let's head over and see what Paul had to say on MSNBC just yesterday.
Now the AP reports the former Pentagon spokesperson who was tied to the online DEI purge was asked to resign, though he denies this, saying he offered his resignation. How do you read all of this?
Chaos. Chaos and incompetence has become the culture at the Pentagon under Pete Hegseth. This is why so many of us warned he was not capable of being an effective Secretary of Defense. And the people he brought in have been sloppy and incompetent. And this part of the purge is actually focused on the leaks. This doesn't even have to do with Signalgate. This is actually removing some folks that are loyalists to Hegseth and loyalists to Trump because they potentially leaked information about Elon Musk's meeting on China plans.
So now on top of all of this, we did get some news, kind of strange. This is odd stuff this week. A couple younger gentlemen announced that they were honored to accept appointments to the Office of the Secretary of Defense at the DoD. So that's high level in the sense that you're working for SecDef, whereas the majority of the people in DoD are not, right? Even when they're at the Pentagon, they're working in different departments. This is working for Secretary Hegseth. Now, they're not Senate appointees, and there's all sorts of little nuance in there, but the general gist of this is they were picked. There would not have been an application process for this type of role, which is not unique. That's how these roles are selected. But it is interesting seeing the couple guys that made public their appointments this week. It's just not what you probably would have expected. So the first one here, we have Royce Chamberlain. To my understanding, not a lot of information on either one of these guys. My understanding, Royce, no college. He's a YouTuber, had a small YouTube channel, and he's the son of a state representative in Florida. He posted, quote, "I'm excited and honored to announce that I've been appointed to the Office of the Secretary of Defense of the DoD, helping ensure our country is viewed as a force not to be reckoned with," which, he caught a little flack on that last sentence there. It's not exactly the way you would say that, but nonetheless, Chamberlain is in. It's not entirely clear what his role would be. And I want to briefly say there's a ton of people at DoD with no military experience. That is not a prerequisite for working at DoD, not by a long shot. So let's take that off the table. You can add plenty of value to our warfighters, plenty of value to our Defense Department without actually having worn the uniform. Okay, but it's not entirely clear like what that experience would be that he's bringing to what appears to be such a senior role. That is a little out of the ordinary, to say the least. The other one here that was also announced was Amjad Yaqub. My apologies for the pronunciation there. Who also announced that he's been appointed as a special assistant to the Secretary of Defense. Again, not a lot of information on this guy. Younger, it looks like in looking through some of his history online, he spent 4 months as a Senate intern, and then he ran Yaku social media agency that he says gathered hundreds of thousands of followers. I don't know. Again, I don't know what the role is that these guys are going to be playing. Maybe it's more of the DoD rapid response on Twitter. They're just kind of hammering, trolling people a lot. Maybe that's the direction they're going to go. But nonetheless, like the appointment to roles in the Office of the Secretary of Defense stand out. So we'll see. But either way, the story this last week in DoD is you've got senior advisors, and a lot of these guys, at least I know Caldwell and I believe Casper both came from a military background. Guys with a lot of experience working in DoD or in the military, or at least been in the workforce for a decade plus. They're all out, and we've got a couple of youngins coming in, bringing in the new blood, if you will. But hey, we'll keep an eye on this and see what happens. It's not. You don't want this type of turmoil at the Pentagon. Like, full stop. Doesn't matter where you sit on the political spectrum or if you think that Hegseth is good, bad, or indifferent. It's just stability. We want stability in our Defense Department. Change can always happen amidst that stability, but this does not help the U.S. national defense cause when there's kind of regular turmoil, especially at the higher level. So hopefully this all gets sorted out and we get some resolution, maybe get some information from DOD about these moves here before too long. But that's all I got for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.